mechanism there. There was some kind of mental process that had an effect on what they were doing. And you could say that before they had the technological ability, the mechanical ability to do some of these things, there was a mind effect that people of a strong mind could maybe be better alchemists. I just think that it makes a little more sense now. It's kind of mind-blowing, man.
Yeah, well, they called the mind the inner fire. And so when you read a lot of, all this stuff's encoded and it's really hard to decipher. But that was one of the things that stuck out to me, was they keep talking about this inner fire. And to me, that speaks to, this quality of the mind where you can be a projected consciousness outside of yourself and go different places, like remote viewing and things like that. And they've actually done experiments where they've had photomultiplier tubes at the target of something that was being remote viewed, and they found that they could detect light. So when somebody was remote viewing something, they could detect light with a sensor.
Huh.
And it was very, very small, but that showed that there was something going on there. And so I think that our consciousness, by injecting intent, especially once you start to get into kind of altered states of consciousness, you'd be able to open up this pathway between the conscious and the unconscious a bit more, then you're able to take processes that would normally be impossible, and you start to skew the way that these lower level interactions happen on an aggregate scale, and you're able to make reactions occur that would normally be impossible. And so, it's something that I think is really at the root of our reality to a degree, but it also gets into alchemy and magic and all this other stuff that you like to talk about.
Yeah. This is just so exciting for me, because a lot of the stuff that gets talked about on the show I've been into for maybe a decade or more, and this is just pretty fresh. And there's so many people who try to talk about alchemy as, it's all just symbolic language and it's about strengthening your mind. Yeah, strengthening your mind so you can do some real shit. Strengthening your mind so you can have some scientific effects. And it's almost like that's the disinformation. To say that there's no way, there's no area where alchemy touches real science is like, get out of here.
Well, I think a lot of people, especially in the New Age world, they like to think about everything being in your head to a large degree, and, our perspective, and, there's a lot of, let's say, manipulation behind the scenes when it comes to the New Age perspective on the whole, in terms of different institutes that have been set up who are being funded by the Rockefellers or this or that, and, stuff like that. So I think there is this tendency to keep it to the self-help realm, because a lot of that stuff is just kind of like the self-help realm. And, if I just envision that my life will be better, it will be better, and kind of keeping it in this fantasy mentality.
Right. Keep it in areas where the results cause people to actually dismiss the phenomenon itself and the entire body of work.
Yeah. But they know about this, and the whole mindset of it is, my psychology affects reality, but it's just... There's pieces missing from the puzzle there, let me just say.
Right. They make it seem arbitrary.
Yeah, they make it seem either way, it doesn't matter, it's all good. And that whole kind of like, if I just do my thing, I can ignore the rest of reality and just kind of, but really you can't. Yeah, I don't want to beat too much up on the New Agers. There are some interesting things that they know about, and obviously they aren't dismissing a lot of the stuff like the scientists, but let's just say I think there's holes in their philosophy.
Right. Maybe their interpretation's a little off because they don't have the scientific background or the know-how to really put the pieces together, but they don't have a bad intention.
A lot of them have intuitive understanding, but then I think there's also these levers of control that guide them into certain ways of thinking as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so I wanted to ask you, before we get into the weird stuff and dive into the deep end of the pool, just to put a kind of a capstone on this, what'll probably be up to this point, just what turns out to be the free show, just to make it all come full circle. But have you taken any of this research and done any experiments yourself, either by building a Victor S-style device or by giving yourself vortexed water to see how you feel, anything like that?
Well, I've done a little. I mean, in terms of vortexing the water, if you want to do it like the Rudolf Steiner method of vortexing, where it's kind of like an